Hello, everybody. So, you know, sorry. A few nights ago, I watched that documentary, Living Neverland, for the first time, and it was actually aired in two parts here where I live in Norway on the national channel, the main national channel. Yeah. So, yeah, I understand there was a lot of controversy, of course, and it had to be over that whole situation. So, yeah, I mean, those two guys, I think Wade Robson and James Safechuck, they were, of course, accused of lying now, and still, they still get so much hate, online and in the medias and especially from both, the Jackson family and the biggest fans of Michael Jackson, of course. But I think that is so wrong because this is such a serious subject, child abuse, and it's obvious these two guys were abused. I mean, there's no, I mean, come on, then. If not, then everybody is lying. Everybody is telling one big lie because this is not the only, of course, the only time that he was accused of this, of course. And I remember it was just after I arrived here for the first time to this country in '93 that I heard about this trial, against Michael Jackson, and of course I was almost shocked, but and surprised. But yeah, I remember reading some details about him in my home country already when I was still a child, and there were things about him that were, kind of odd. He didn't actually live like a normal person, You though it would be hard, of course, for a guy of his, stature of star status. So, but anyway, what happened for you who haven't seen this documentary? I'm just gonna say, a little bit about what it's about, what really happened. All right. Well, it starts first in 1987. I believe, yeah. He had his bad tour. Jackson was promoting his record, his album called Bad, and first it started with I believe this is the first time actually James Safechuck was probably the first victim of Michael Jackson. Actually, it does appear that way. The first known victim, anyway, and he was around 9, I believe, at the time, and they met because he was in the commercial, in the Pepsi commercial. And I remember seeing that commercial on TV in my own country, of course, as well. And so they were in this commercial, together. And Safechuck was, as I said, about 9 years old, I believe, 8 or 9. And then Jackson, he really took a liking to Safechuck, and he ended up inviting him and his parents with him to Hawaii because they were having there was kind of Pepsi convention over there, and Michael was the biggest star they had, of course, their biggest sponsor. I mean their biggest, yeah, kind of, how do you call it? Doesn't matter. Biggest star, simply, who advertised for them. So that everything went fine there, but when after they got back home, I believe Michael invited Safechuck to his to Neverland, of course, and yeah, it's simply there that the abuse started. And at first, they were just watching stuff like movies, whatever, cartoons together, eating popcorn, and then slowly it developed into the molestation, the child abuse. And then later on, we meet Wade Robson, who is like the more famous of these two guys. He and as a result, he's the one that's taken the brunt of the hatred from the fans and everybody. And not least because he was actually more involved. He was closer to Jackson and his family than Safechuck because Safechuck actually said that he didn't really wasn't a big fan of Michael Jackson, but he became a big fan usually. And they were both into dancing, so they were yeah. That's how they really became so close to Michael. They were kind of doing his dance routine of trying to to copy him, and they were good at it. So yeah. So Robson is from Australia. So but he was like not 8 yet, I believe. It was in 1990 that he first came over to Neverland. And I don't think he was still 8 because he was born in September 82. Doesn't matter. So, cut a long story short, he came there with his family and his grandparents actually. Because it's a really big ranch, the big estate. Plenty of rooms, bedrooms and all that. So Wade said that from the first night that he got there, they actually slept with in the same bed, and but his sister was also there. His sister was like 2 years older or three years older. So you might wonder because his mother was there. I don't think his father was, or maybe he was, but anyway, his mother was the one that was always, most involved in Wade and his sister. She was like the main responsible there because she was also like Wade's manager when he became a child dancer. So, and you might wonder like what was on her mind when she let Wade sleep with Michael. I mean, on the very first night, I really don't get that kind of mindset. So yeah, I mean, so that kind of went on. Wade was, I believe, he kept, let's put it away, seeing Michael that way for like 6 years. Yeah, to 1996 was the last time. And James, let's just call him James, he was also very tight. I mean, his whole family was very tight with Michael also, and they all thought he was, doing it all just because of the kind of kindness of his heart, and because he was so fond of their son. That's the saddest part. I mean, but I mean, really, it's not really hard to figure out, all right, why Michael was interested in them in that way, right? Because if you look at both, Robson, Safecheck, and some of the others also, that kid that was the first one to accuse him, Jordy something, I don't know, Jordy Sparks or whatever. I mean, they're all, good looking. So that's I take it as a really good proof of that all did really happen. I mean, one of the proofs is that they were really, beautiful children, all of them, and they are now also good looking as adults. So, and of course, there's a lot of other evidence going on. I mean, but one thing that is very sad, of course, is that neither of these two uh, men who were then boys were able to testify or willing to testify against Jackson in 93 or 2005, I believe, because they were told that, by him that if they told anybody, their lives would be over. They would end up in jail and stuff like that. So yeah, so that's a very tragic story, altogether. So I really think that people who are bashing these two men are really ought to, take a step back and think, what they are doing, actually, because, I get it. Their love for Jackson is so big that they cannot cope with this. So it's much easier to just call these guys liars, and ignore the facts, ignore the truth, right? So, but that's not the way, that will not make it any less true, simple as that. So there were, I mean, if a guy isn't on trial once, he gets accused, he's on trial once, alright, maybe, he gets, and he didn't even get acquitted. I mean, for for heaven's sake, first time it was a settle, alright. He he offered these people enough money so they could, withdraw yeah, their case, their, how do you call it? Well, it doesn't matter. So, yeah, and the second time, well, he was acquitted only because of the testimony, or mostly because of Ray Robson's testimony, and where he said that nothing really happened that way between him and Michael Jackson. So that's the really tragic part. Back then, I mean, he could have been at least, you know, prevented in abusing more children. But the best thing, of course, would have been if he was already sentenced back in '93, and put in jail. And I think it was Robson that also says in that documentary, I just cannot picture him in jail, Michael George Jackson in jail. That would have been really brutal for him. He thinks that he would be really like brutalized and who knows, maybe even sodomized, most likely. And so this is actually a man who had so much compassion for the guy who molested him for so long. He still felt compassion, of course. It was not just fear, it was compassion that made him not tell the truth back then. All right. So unfortunately, when he and Safechuck finally got the, well, it was mostly Robson, I think, at first got enough courage to. It was after Jackson was dead already, so they got enough courage to sue, but then it was already too late. Of course, the perpetrator was gone, right? So they tried to sue his estate, but they are not really responsible for that. So that was just a dumb move on their behalf, I would say. So yeah, I mean, I think, everybody who doesn't really understand this, or who is looking at this from a too biased angle, who is not really believing all this, or isn't sure, especially people who are not sure whether all this is true, all these allegations, that they should really watch that documentary. I mean, yeah, it's rather, heavy stuff, and you know, but still, it's perfectly watchable. I mean, they don't show anything, that is, that may make you cringe, or whatever. Yeah. So I think, yeah. I mean, the worst thing is that all this, when he was the first time on trial, Jackson, that should have been his wake up call, right? That should have made him say to himself, "Oh, I'm really sick. I should get help so stuff like this cannot happen again. I cannot really, you know, go through this again. I should not, and I should not, you know, damage any more children, simply." But no, he kept on doing it because he could. He got away with it, and he just kept on doing it. So that shows that actually he was a really sick, twisted guy, deep inside. He was not really this poor innocent victim that some have painted him as. Yeah, I think, and that's sad, of course, because he was one of the greatest musicians, in history, of course, and one of the most successful as well, of course. So yeah, I remember when he died, there was so much, you know, even here on newspapers, on TV, everywhere, about him for days and days and days. So, yeah. I mean, I remember even that British journalist who had his interview with him in 2005, I believe, right after this second trial. He was also really like, he got a lot of hate. He got a lot of hate. I know that because he tried to really like challenge Michael. He tried to get him to really, admit, something that he did abuse some certain children. Yeah, or he tried, simply uh, to face face him, or how do you say it, to make him face this. But yeah, of course, people will never understand. I mean, some people will always say, no, that's just lies. These guys are after money. And the worst part, that's what they said at the end of the documentary, Leaving Neverland. They said that the worst part is all these children who were not believed, who, especially those two who took Jackson to court, actually, Jordy and the other boy, I don't know his name. They were really like, kind of crucified by the media and by the fans, yeah. And their families, I believe, also, probably. Oh, they are just after money, gold diggers, blah, blah. Shame on you and stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, that's the world. That's being a celebrity. I mean, you can do a lot of things, a lot of bad things before you really, before others, the public, take notice and they find about it and they start to judge you. It takes a lot, sometimes. It really does take a lot. And before it can get out. So, yeah. Well, anyway, I'm happy that these guys, Wade Robson and James Safechuck, are doing well now. But of course, this will always be with them. And yeah, all right. I chose to speak about this because I think it needs to be spoken about. Simply. All right. So take it easy. So see you. Bye bye.